Okay, so now that we have the prodema all cut out, we've started working on our adjustments. Now let's go through and give it a little more dimension. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that eraser tool again. Now if you look at the render, it looks like the sun is coming from kind of over here and being cast down into the courtyard. So keep that in mind when you're making your shadows, is the direction of the sun. So we're going to start back over here with our first panel of prodema, and you know, if you think about it, the sun is going to be kind of hitting this. The reason that you can do this type of effect is the prodema is a little bit of a reflective material, as is the metal that's used. Some materials you're obviously not going to be able to do this with, so kind of use your best judgment there. If you have any questions, just ask your professor about how they think the sun would affect that material if you're not completely sure. But we're just going to go through our prodema panels and kind of add a little bit of an effect, a little touch to them to show the sun kind of shining on them. Be sure to stay consistent when you're doing this. The worst thing you can do is add too much or too little sun shading to different areas. All right, so now that we've got that done, we can go ahead and start working on a little bit of line work and fading that out as well. Now just remember, keep this in mind, that this is only one of about a million ways that you can render and approach rendering. So don't feel like you're locked into this style or anything like that. There's a lot of great tutorials online as well that can help you kind of figure out your own style. So these buildings over here, I don't want these lines in them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my line work, just have my eraser tool. I'm going to turn up the opacity all the way back to 100 because I want to completely erase these lines. And I'm just erasing those white lines there that kind of border on that. You can kind of fade a couple of them out if you'd like. That's complete preference. And I'm going to do the same thing to these lines over here. Just bring them back a little bit, and then we're going to fade them out. So don't erase all the way down. Those were lines that just kind of extended past the periphery of everything in the render. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go turn down that opacity and that flow again. This is the part where you kind of have to make decisions for yourself and what you like as a style. All these grid lines that are on here were part of the panel system that we used and like the module for the paneling that we used in this project. So you can turn these down. Something else you can do is you can also play with the opacity of the line work as a whole entity, which I like to turn it down just a little bit. There's some areas where it looks nice to leave some of that stuff like over in here. So something else you can do if you're not completely sold on turning off all your line work, you can actually duplicate the layer. So I did that by right-clicking on the layer I want to duplicate, go up to Duplicate Layer. You can name it whatever. I usually like to keep it the same name and then copy, so I know that's the second copy. And then what I'll do is I'll go into the copy and I'll delete everything except the area I want to keep. So we're going to go in and we're going to do that really fast. So I just want to keep this area right around here. So everything else is getting erased. Okay, now we can go in and we can change the opacity of our first line work now. Tone that down, but see, we still retain this area over here that we wanted to keep. So we keep a little bit of definition. And now you can go in just with the eraser tool with the turned down opacity and flow. And you can kind of selectively edit areas, like areas where there's a little more sun hitting, you're not going to see as much detail. So it's okay to get rid of that. Another technique is kind of let the line work extend out of the material. So if you'd like to do that, you can keep that as well. So we're just going to go right in here. This also too, this area here, it looks like our render kind of gets chopped off, so we can go into our render and erase kind of little bits of that too and fade that out to the top. Okay, so we've got pretty much everything now. This material over here now is a different style of wood, so we're going to bring that in really quickly. Same way as before, we're just going to open it, scroll down, bring in our wood texture. Grass is an important part of keeping around. So we're going to do this the exact same way we've done everything else. We're going to use our insert. We're going to insert a texture. So I've done a couple textures, so we're going to open them both up. And I think you guys will have access to these textures too, so if you want to use the same ones, by all means go for it. So we're going to drag both of these grass textures in. I'm just going to kind of put this one off to the side for now. Notice how I picked kind of two with two different scales. I picked one with the more up close texture and one that's kind of further back. We're going to layer those together so we can get an actual pretty good perspective with what's going on. Okay. So what we're going to do with this grass is we are going to enlarge it just a little bit to get the scale a little more correct. So we're going to use that transform tool, the Control-T. I'm just going to enlarge it just a little bit here. I'm going to go ahead and accept those changes. We're going to kind of position it right about just really anywhere where that larger grass is closer to us. Now we're going to use a new tool called the Clone Stamp tool. You can find that over here. It's right below your paintbrush tool. Sometimes a pattern stamp tool will be there if you right click, but we want the Clone Stamp tool. Okay, what we're going to do to select the area to clone is we're going to hold down the Alt key. That's going to bring up this little target-like cursor here, and then we're just going to click somewhere on our grass. Now, if we start doing over here, like if we start clicking over here, like we were painting, it's going to duplicate anything that other bit of the cursor sees. Now that we have kind of two areas, we're just going to keep doing that over and over again using the Alt tool. All right, so we can also grab our texture, bring that in, and start pulling elements from that. Let's bring this over. We can enlarge that a touch. What we're going to do is actually merge these two layers together, which will give us one continuous grass surface. So if we highlight grass 2, hold down Control and hit grass 1, it'll highlight both of them. We can right click and then select merge layers. Now those are one layer, so we can use the Clone Stamp tool and continue making some grass. Okay, so now that this is done, we want our grass to be over top of everything else. So let's go ahead and drag it over to the top in our layer properties area. We want that to be on top because the grass is going to be growing in front of the buildings. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to play with the opacity again. Dial it back. You don't want your grass to be overpowering. So this again is another one of those times when your adjustments will come in. You can use that hue and saturation. You can tone back your saturation, but just remember you don't want dead grass. So the lightness is also something that's nice to play with here. You turn down the saturation too much, your grass looks brown and dead. Nobody wants that. So make sure you keep that in mind. You can also do things like duplicating the layer and then changing the opacity on certain parts of the layer. And then you can go back and erase. This is all stuff you just have to kind of play around with. Just remember, as you go back further in the perspective, the grass texture is going to get smaller and smaller. So what you can do is, since you already have this area created here, what we can do is we can go ahead and merge these two layers. Then we can duplicate it again. And then what we'll do is we'll grab our move tool, move it back. We're going to use our Control T, and we're just going to transform it proportionally and scale it down just a little bit. We're going to scale it just so it fits in this area here. We have the beginning of our landscape. We're just going to, you can do this back area if you'd like. We're just going to leave that empty for now, just for the sakes of the tutorial. We're going to show you how to add some texture to these two little wall areas next. So I have a texture for that. It is a paneled wood. Just grab that the same way we've grabbed all of our other textures. I'm going to drag it into our project. You can close that. We're going to go ahead and duplicate this layer. That keeps us from having to drag it in every time. This way we just have two. So we're going to name one of them Wood Wall 1, and then the other one is Wood Wall 2. Okay, so now that we have our two walls built, we want to add some trees and some people, okay? So what you can do is you can go and we're going to grab, I already have some of those textures downloaded into this file. So we're going to grab this maple tree right here. You can go ahead and open that up. We're just going to use our move tool again. Get on. We can go ahead and close this maple tree because we're not going to use that button. So now we have all this white background, so we've got to get rid of that somehow. So we're going to use our magic wand tool. It's the fourth tool down on the toolbar. We're going to select, just click somewhere in this white area because that's what we're trying to delete. So we're going to get rid of this background, but we still have all this white area in between, and we don't want to go in and delete all that individually. So a little shortcut is if you select that white area, you right click in it and select similar. What that's going to do is it's going to highlight all of the white bits in that entire layer. So you can change what's selected by using the tolerance. The lower the tolerance, the less pixels it's going to select, so it's going to be a more precise click. Whereas if the tolerance is higher, it'll just kind of ballpark it. For this 20 is perfect, but if you're doing something really precise, you might want to go down to as low as like 1 or 2. So we can go ahead and just hit the delete button on this. We've gotten rid of all of our white now. We can just select Control and D. That'll deselect everything. Now you can see we've got this nifty little bit over here. We can just use our rectangular selector tool, and we can just grab all of that, just hit the delete button, and there's a maple tree. There we go. So those are our trees. And if you want to add shadows, if your project is something where you want to add shadows, you can always go in with things like your paintbrush. Get a nice small brush, turn down your opacity, your flow. Little square button in the corner, that'll give you a new layer. So we can just call this. After you draw it, you probably want to merge it with your tree just so everything stays attached. But you can come in and you can add shadows however you want. You know, it would kind of think about how it would look realistically. It would probably come up this wall some. It's okay to get a little crazy at first, but then make sure you dial it back so it looks realistic. And then you can go back and use either your eraser tool or your rectangular marquee tool and erase what you don't want. Okay, so last couple things we're going to add some plants. Plants add almost the exact same way as trees. I want to show you how to kind of compile this really quickly. It's a little more difficult tree plant collection on the you're going to have your own. So I like the way they looked for the project. So we're just going to select both of those and open them up. For this, I want to start a new drawing, just so I can keep everything kind of clean. So we're going to go File, New. We want to make it inches, and then I'm just going to make it like 8.5 by 11. It really doesn't matter what size this is. Change our resolution though, that's important. And then we can drag our plant images onto this file. And then we can just close those because we won't need those again. Okay, so now that we have this, what we're going to do is we're going to use that magic wand tool again. And we're going to go in and we're going to start selecting areas of the plants we want. So I've selected this area, but you know, obviously I want more than that. So if I hold down the Shift key, I can continue to select the other areas in the plant. Okay, so now that we have that selected, we can do the select inverse, and we can just delete everything else. So now we're left with these kind of right now ugly looking little pink fluffy things. So we can deselect that. We can go to our other plant and do the exact same thing. So now I'm going to move them together, kind of in an arrangement I like. And now I'm going to select them both and play with their opacities. By doing this, I can pick which one looks more forward of the others, but it also gives the drawing a little bit of extra texture. Now I'm going to come back in with the eraser tool again. Because we don't need this bottom part. Sometimes you don't need parts of plants. Because it's just kind of for the visual recognition of plants, not necessarily that you're trying to be precise with that plant. So now that you have this plant, we can go ahead and we can merge these two layers. So select them both, click merge, and now we're going to drag them into our main drawing. And that's pretty much it. The only other changes you might want to make are blurring out the edges of your drawing, going back in, adding a couple more shadows, but for the most part, that's it. Always remember to save your work. Keep your file, keep your layers over here named. It'll help you keep organized. But those are the basics. From there, you can pretty much do anything you'd like. Hope that helps, and happy photoshopping.